What's up, guys, and welcome to my review of Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. Something I've been looking forward to for a while. Ever since the first trailer started popping up, I was like, oh, another Mad Max movie, bring it on. This is, of course, the fifth in the franchise and a prequel to Mad Max Fury Road that came out back in 2015. So essentially, you have this younger Furiosa who is a character in that last movie. For those of you who've watched Mad Max Fury Road, you know what I'm talking about. You get a younger Furiosa who seeks vengeance on the man who kidnapped her and killed her mother, all while trying to survive her journey in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. First of all, I'm a massive, huge fan of Mad Max Fury Road. I've got mad love for that film. There's tons of fun around every corner, around every aspect of that film. It's just uncanny how much I love that film. Still do. Even the Mel Gibson movies were pretty good. More specifically, The Road Warrior. I do remember liking that one the most out of those. And they're very unique. You know, not just with the Mel Gibson ones, but transferring over to the Fury Road storylines. They're each different in tone, which kind of makes them unique. No other franchise has ever been able to pull that off. It's always been the same with others, but with Mad Max, it's always been different. And that's what makes this series kind of unique. Aside from these last two films, which kind of has the same tone, and it kind of falls in line with what other franchises do to theirs, which is the same tone. But the Mel Gibson versions leading up to Fury Road, it has a pretty unique take on it because of its change in tone with each film. Prequels, on the other hand, are sort of a hit and miss with me. There are some people out there that prefer the continuation style, the continuation side of things, but there are others out there that actually prefer answers to questions that we've sort of gotten in the movies before, in the present time movies before, which is why I can understand why the people that are against prequels doesn't really much care for it. We've already established what happened to certain characters. Why do we need to see it? If a prequel is done right, then that should merit its existence. Me, on the other hand, I lean more towards the continuation part. But again, I don't mind a prequel every now and then if it's done right. With that being said, was Furiosa one of those prequels that was actually done right enough for me to actually accept its merits of existence? Or was it another one of those that just, I don't care. I've already seen this in Fury Road. Why do I need to see a 2.5-hour movie of what was already said in context in Fury Road? Let's find out by starting with the positives. Let's get the most obvious ones out of the way, shall we? The look and feel of this film was done really good. It looked awesome. The way this whole world was presented was pretty flawless. The whole post-apocalyptic wasteland that this whole franchise takes place in, the last two of these, especially with Fury Road and Furiosa, the way that they made this apocalyptic wasteland look was done well. It really popped. It really flashed. Like with Fury Road, it really had a way of transporting you into that world. Director George Miller, who is a doctor turned filmmaker, interesting tidbit, brings this grimy, gloomy, yet mesmerizing feel to the film where you just can't help but praise it. The action set pieces was pretty spot on. Some mesmerizing choreographed shots and scenes that really earned this film's place in the action spotlight. And going back to Miller, his involvement was so heavy that he was involved with pretty much everything. And at almost 80 years old, that's quite an accomplishment. From what I understand, he's handled everything from the action set pieces to the secondary units and everything. From what I understand, he hardly had any help. And it definitely shows that he is such a talented filmmaker, the way he's done these movies, that you can't even tell. Like, he hasn't slowed up a bit. And again, quite an accomplishment. The man hadn't missed a single beat, that's for sure. You get Anya Taylor-Joy, that plays the main protagonist that Charlize Theron played in Fury Road. She was fantastic as the main character. She pretty much stole the show. She was amazing in every scene. She's an actress that I've come to love very dearly, and she may end up being my new Hollywood crush. Sorry, Jessica Alba. But in all seriousness, she was awesome. I thought she brought the right amount of depth to this character, especially as a younger character of Charlize Theron, that I think she pretty much nailed it. Then you got Chris Hemsworth as our main baddie in Dementus. I thought he made a terrific main villain. I thought he made a great villain. He brought such a very sadistic take on this character. It was pretty nice seeing him play something like that other than in the MCU. And this is an actor that could pretty much do no wrong. The man has a pretty strong resume that he can do pretty much anything from romance to comedy to horror to comic book stuff to whatever. But what he brought to Dementus, to this character in Furiosa, was pretty awesome, was pretty cool. It was one of those kind of cartoon-like characters. While having some silly moments surrounding his character and personality, he still brought the thunder and how vicious he was. And I thought he pulled it off pretty well. I thought he pulled it off just perfectly. Like I said, I'm happy to see Chris Hemsworth expand into something other than in the MCU, other than Thor. Now, moving on to my mixed, and this is something that I'll probably harp on here for a little bit. But the whole prequel angle, now I understand that there's some people out there that prefer the continuation side of things, and others that prefer more answers of things that we've got in context of the movies before that. And I understand why people kind of want the continuation side of things, but I'm pretty lenient. Me, personally, I prefer the continuation side of things, but unless a prequel is done right, then I don't mind it. But I guess you could say I'm more like split down the middle whenever it comes to this. If it's something that I was really interested in the first place, which Mad Max has always been films that, yeah, that they're good. I just haven't really been one that watches them that much, with the exception of Fury Road. Now, I guess you could say that this is a whole new, completely different trilogy altogether, separate from those Mel Gibson ones. But for something that has come out that I watched a lot, which is why I'm split down the middle. I'm usually a continuation sort of guy. But when it comes to prequels of something, of a movie that I've watched so much, which I definitely did with Mad Max Fury Road, that's why I'm a little bit more lenient with this than most are. Than the people that prefers the continuation. Although, again, I would have preferred a continuation story with Charlize Theron's character instead. With Furiosa, something like this is a little bit of a coin toss. If it's done in the most interesting and intriguing way, then most definitely I'm sold. I'm curious and I'm invested. I can get behind it. But Furiosa, she's an interesting character. She's somebody that has never appeared in any of the other, especially the Mel Gibson versions. But again, I honestly would have preferred just one more of the Charlize Theron as a continued story before Furiosa, before a much younger storyline of Furiosa had come out. That to me would have been my preference, and that would have gave this film a little bit more of a leeway, a little more of an understanding of why we actually do need a prequel in the first place of a character that wasn't really that known. And let's be fair, the Mad Max Fury Road didn't really make that much cheese, but they still made a prequel anyway of the same universe. But the Furiosa character, she was new, and they didn't really give her enough to expand on her storyline before they just delved right into a prequel. That to me, I think, was a little bit premature. Now again, I had fun with Furiosa. There was definitely some fun moments he had in this film. But I felt like if they'd have just made one more movie with Charlize Theron as a continuation story from Mad Max Fury Road, and then went on to Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, then I think that would have fared better. The film still earned its merits. It's something that I found that no reason for it not to exist. I think it's still a pretty entertaining film. But I just think one more continuation from Mad Max Fury Road, if only that had been made in between, then I think this would have fared a little bit better. Moving on to my negatives, and this goes out to all those who actually review movies and looks at movies a certain way, and I think y'all can all pretty much agree with me that this movie was a little bit too long. I felt like that's the only thing that really, the main thing, I've got a couple other things that I'm going to say here, but that's the main thing that kind of held this movie back for me. Now, compared to Fury Road, there's no way I can not compare this to that film. It is the same universe, but compared to that film, I felt like Furiosa was kind of a slow burn. There was certain scenes in there to where I felt like they could have trimmed out at least 15 minutes. There's a couple scenes to where Furiosa meets up with this guy, and you get this sense to where they kind of have a thing, but you don't really care because there's not much character development. You definitely feel the film's length. The film clocks in at about 2 hours and 28 minutes, when Fury Road, on the other hand, was 2 hours on the dot. Here, you definitely can tell a major difference. And it pulls at your shirt. It tugs at your shirt like a little kid begging for candy. It's like, Daddy, Daddy, can we get ice cream? Can we get ice cream? Daddy, Daddy. It just constantly reminds you. And I get this is a Furiosa and Dementis film, and Furiosa's quest for vengeance against this guy. I get it. It's their film. It's their movie. But there's a segment that I felt was missing entirely that I think the film could have benefited a lot better. Why was Furiosa from Fury Road so pissed off and so infuriated with Immortan Joe? I felt like there's no real explanation there. Like, what happened between the two to have Theron's Furiosa from Fury Road so infuriated and so pissed off at Immortan Joe to go to the level of extent that she did in that film? Why did she go off the deep end the way she did in Fury Road? Like, I got no context. I got nothing from that in this, and this is supposed to be a prequel. Now, again, I understand this is more about Furiosa's vengeance against this Dementis guy. I get it. But I felt like that could have been helpful, at least showing the whole dynamic between Immortan Joe and Furiosa as well. I just felt like there was a big chunk missing. I felt like that was kind of an integral part of this specific universe of the Mad Max series. And if I'm being honest here, that probably would have made the pacing a little bit better. It would have made it a little bit more intriguing. Instead of having this kind of dragged out, sluggish type of film, which this film definitely did feel like that in certain moments. Not that I'm saying it was bad, but instead of having all that could have been replaced with the whole dynamic and the whole explanation between Immortan Joe and Furiosa instead. That probably would have benefited the film a lot better. And it would have made it feel as sluggish and feel as much of a slow burn as it did. And again, honestly, I think it would have upped the stakes a little bit better, a little bit higher, and it probably would have made it feel more like Fury Road did to me. There's certain scenes, small, mind you, but there are certain scenes to where it kind of felt a little comic bookish because there was some CGI, some kind of cheesy special effects thrown in here, which it kind of disappointed me. It kind of took me out of the film just for a little bit. There's a shot of Furiosa with her back leaned up against this concrete wall to where there's like a fire hose being thrown at her or being fired at her, and you can see fire coming out from each side, and that just looked a little bit too comic bookish, and it kind of took me away from it a little bit. But there's a couple other scenes that was kind of similar. I was thinking to myself, why would you do something like that in a movie like this when you never had to do anything like that in Fury Road? I didn't really think that was necessary. It didn't really add that much merit to it. It's like when you come to a Mad Max movie, you want it to feel practical, and there's just some scenes in this, in Furiosa, that just kind of nah. And last but not least, and this may be construed as a spoiler, but not really. So if you don't want to know anything else, I suggest that you skip this part and just go straight to my rating. But this is a prequel, so it's kind of inevitable. But there's a segment that happens right at the very end, right before the end credit starts, that clearly shows that it takes place right before Fury Road. Almost to the point to where you can chop and edit this together along with Fury Road. So basically, the thing I have a problem with, and this is another curse of going along with the territory of viewing movies the way I do. I know most people probably wouldn't even care about this, but I kind of do, because I'm a continuity guy. But you clearly see Anya Taylor-Joy, this young female, this younger actor, in that same shot right before the events of Fury Road starts. Again, it's clearly the precise moment before that film starts, and that just never sat well with me. It just didn't feel accurate at all. So what they really should have done, and it would have made a ton of more sense, is they could have at least gotten Charlize Theron back just for that little cameo, just for that little spot. Because Anya Taylor-Joy is too young. it still showed her as a young girl. It still showed her as a younger character, as a younger Furiosa. But I felt like if they'd have just got Charlize Theron back, this wouldn't have even been brought up. But again, it just tugged at me, like just tugs at my shirt, and I just can't help but bring this up. But that would have made more sense. That would have made more cohesive sense in the sense of continuity. And I know continuity kind of goes out the window with most movies, but still, it's just something that I can't quite shake off. You can't expect me to believe that Anya Taylor-Joy could just transform into Charlize Theron overnight. You just, no. No, there's no way. She's just much too young, and they just really should have got Theron back. Just for that little shot. It wouldn't have hurt anybody. But again, I digress. So in closing, Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. Not a bad film. Was it as good as Fury Road? No, not by a stretch, but it still had its moments. It doesn't come close to the awesomeness that was Fury Road, but still pretty enjoyable. Give it a chance. Well, that's it for this one, guys. Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. What was your thoughts on it? Have you seen it yet? What was your thoughts on it? Are you somebody that likes the directions that these two went? Are you somebody that likes prequels? Or are you somebody that likes the Mel Gibson films? Or are you somebody who just never cared about the Wasteland at all? Leave me your comment down below and give me your thoughts. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this. I really do appreciate it. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. As always, make sure to click that bell icon so you don't miss a thing. I elaborate on that. And I will see you on the next one. Peace.